The mining colony on Kepler 442b had been humanity's most dangerous venture yet. The planet teemed with apex predators, creatures the colonists had dubbed Ravagers. Standing 8 feet tall with obsidian scales, triple rows of serrated teeth, and claws that could shred titanium plating, adult Ravagers had claimed 17 human lives in the first year alone. The Galactic Council had warned Earth, abandon the colony, or face extinction. Ruby Chen refused to abandon anything. She stood at the edge of the settlement's energy barrier, her crimson scarf, a gift from her late grandmother, wrapped snugly around her neck, despite the humid air. The fabric was silk, embroidered with golden phoenixes, absurdly delicate for a world where everything wanted to kill you. But Ruby wore it every day, a reminder that beauty could exist even in hell. "You're doing it again," Daniel Martinez said, walking up beside her with 2 mugs of synthetic coffee. His weather-beaten face carried the scars of their 3-year struggle on this planet. As colony security chief, he'd killed more Ravagers than anyone else. "Doing what?" Ruby accepted the coffee, her eyes still scanning the violet jungle beyond the barrier. "Staring out there like you're trying to understand them." Daniel sipped his drink. "They're monsters, Ruby. There's nothing to understand." Ruby didn't respond. She'd been the colony's chief xenobiologist for 2 years. And in that time, she'd learned something the others hadn't. The Ravagers weren't mindless killing machines. They had social structures, communication patterns, even what appeared to be mourning rituals. The problem was that humans had built their colony directly on a Ravager breeding ground. A flash of movement caught her eye. 3 small shapes darted from the tree line, moving with surprising speed toward the barrier's edge. Ruby's breath caught. Ravager cubs. She'd only seen them once before, and from much farther away. "Daniel, look," but he'd already drawn his plasma pistol. "Get back. I'll handle this." "Wait." Ruby grabbed his arm. "They're juveniles. They're not hunting." "Not yet." Daniel's finger moved to the trigger. The cubs skidded to a halt just outside the barrier, their scales still carrying the iridescent shimmer of youth. They couldn't have been more than 6 months old, barely the size of large dogs, and they were playing, pouncing on each other, tumbling in the purple grass, their movements clumsy and enthusiastic. Then the wind shifted. Ruby's scarf, which she'd loosened in the heat, caught the breeze. Before she could react, it unwound from her neck and sailed through a gap in the barrier, a weak point the engineers had been meaning to fix for weeks. The crimson silk landed directly in front of the cubs. "No." Ruby pressed against the barrier, watching helplessly as the smallest cub approached her grandmother's scarf. This was it. The creature would shred it with those developing claws, another piece of Earth lost to this hostile world. The cub sniffed the fabric. Then, to Ruby's astonishment, it picked up one end, gently in its mouth, and began backing away. The other 2 cubs grabbed the scarf as well, and together they started pulling it between the trees. "They're stealing it," Daniel muttered. "Probably taking it back to their nest." Ruby was already moving toward the equipment shed. "I'm going after them." "Are you insane?" Daniel blocked her path. "Adult Ravagers are probably close by. You'll be dead in minutes. That scarf is the only thing I have left of my grandmother." Ruby's voice was steady, but her eyes blazed. "And those cubs, Daniel, they didn't destroy it. They were careful with it, because they don't know what it is yet. Ruby, please." She pushed past him, grabbing a tracker beacon and a stun baton. "Cover for me. I'll be back in an hour." "This is suicide," Daniel called after her, but he was already running to override the barrier controls. The jungle swallowed Ruby within seconds. She followed the cub's trail. Broken vegetation, small claw marks in the soft earth, and occasional flashes of crimson silk ahead. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed danger, but something deeper pushed her forward. After 20 minutes, she heard sounds that made her freeze. Chirping, high-pitched and playful. She crept forward, parting the broad leaves of a fern-like plant. The clearing ahead stopped her heart. Her scarf had been tied between two trees, hanging at the perfect height for the cubs. All three were taking turns leaping at it, swinging from the fabric with their small claws, tumbling to the ground in apparent delight. They'd created a game, a swing. Ruby's throat tightened. These weren't monsters. They were children. One cub noticed her. Its black eyes locked onto hers, body going still. Ruby knew she had seconds before it alerted the others, before they fled or attacked. Slowly, she raised her empty hands. Palms forward, the universal gesture of peace that probably meant nothing to an alien species. The cub tilted its head, chirped softly. Ruby took one careful step forward, then another. She began to hum an old lullaby her grandmother had sung, the same woman who'd embroidered the phoenixes on that scarf. The melody drifted through the clearing. The other cubs stopped playing. All three watched her now, but they didn't run. Ruby kept humming as she approached the scarf. She reached up slowly, untied one end, and lowered it gently. Instead of taking it, she spread it on the ground like a blanket and stepped back. The cubs looked at each other. Then, in a moment that would change everything Ruby understood about this world, they approached the scarf together and lay down on it. The smallest one purred a sound like distant thunder. Ruby knelt in the grass, tears streaming down her face. She'd come to retrieve her grandmother's scarf. Instead, she'd found something far more valuable, proof that coexistence was possible. When she returned to the colony 2 hours later, scarf wrapped around her neck, Daniel nearly faint with relief. Ruby said only 5 words that would reshape humanity's entire approach to Kepler. 4, 4, 2, B. We're not the only people here. Within a year, the colony had relocated to neutral territory. Contact protocols were established, and sometimes, late at night, Ruby would find small gifts at the barrier's edge. Polished stones, woven grasses, once even a crystal that glowed faintly in the dark. The Ravagers, it turned out, hadn't been trying to kill the humans. They'd been trying to protect their children. And now, finally, so was humanity.